Welcome to the Lawyers Weekly Show for an in-depth look at the issues facing the legal profession.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Lawyers Weekly Show. My name's Jerome Doraisamy. I'm coming to you today from Camaragal Land, and I'm very pleased to be joined by a return guest. Jane Bowes is the Managing Partner of Bowes Legal. She is also the Litigation Partner of the Year, having taken home that trophy at this year's Partner of the Year Awards, and this is her third appearance on our show. Jane, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back, Jerome. Are you sick of me?
Never. Absolutely not. Jane is here on the back of her recent award win to talk about what makes a successful litigator, particularly in the current climate, and also, how some of her experiences have shaped the litigator that she is and how those experiences have set her up for success. Jane, there's a lot to talk about in terms of what makes a successful litigator, and there are certain themes that we're going to be touching on in terms of your own journey in the legal profession. But before we get to that, in between the time of our last recording and this one, you opened a new office with your firm, Bowes Legal. You started out in Rockhampton, and now you've got a Brisbane office. Tell us about that.
Yes, so completely unexpected, but as I've said before, you go where the opportunity takes you. I practiced down in Brisbane for over a decade, and then we moved to regional Queensland to raise the kids and have a better lifestyle up there with the law. It's a little bittersweet, I have to admit, because we do have a really loyal following in Rockhampton. Like, not everyone loves us because of our approach, but our goal and our vision has always been to really advocate and stand up for injured regional Queenslanders. And so we do that. And we do that quite fiercely and passionately. Yes, it can rub a few people up the wrong way, but because of that, we've got a very loyal following up there in terms of clients and referrers. And we equally just started to build down in Brisbane. We were down there very often. All of my family's there, and my children are getting older, and I get a little bit emotional actually thinking about it, because both my parents are still alive and really want to be a part of their life. So it's a work thing as much as it is a family and lifestyle thing as we get older, and I'm so excited about it. Yeah.
I want to circle back to that idea of rubbing some people the wrong way, because I think that'll probably feed into our conversation about what makes you a successful litigator. But what are your broader intentions for the firm moving forward? I mean, you're obviously sort of passionately, Queensland based. I mean, do you foresee expansion into the Gold Coast, into Cairns, into some of the other state hubs? No,
I think we will always be small and nimble and really focus on high quality. And the bigger you get, the less quality control you have. And we are very, very values driven. Everyone that joins us, we're all on the same mission to really advocate for injured Queenslanders and very much regional Queenslanders, so that they don't miss out on really good legal support, really good lawyers and great litigators.
Yeah. So let's talk about your award win. And I want to start off by asking how it felt to take out that trophy.
I am still totally shocked. I think on the night I was a finalist for 3 awards. But deep down, if I'm really honest with myself, I really wanted the Litigation Partner of the Year one. But I just had put it so far to the back of my mind because I didn't think I was good enough. I thought, I stand a chance in personal injury. Like, that's my jam, and, insurance as well. But litigation, because to me, it's always just been the ultimate, and it's not just personal injury. It wasn't just females. It was everyone. I think I wrote about this. Someone had said to me, you'll never win because so-and-so wins every year. And I was already—
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I was already packing up by that point. I had felt not even though I can come across as quite confident in the legal setting, I can be intimidated. I think everybody can. And you're down in Sydney and you've got all the big wigs. And so we had the summit that day and I was just walking around. I'm thinking, what am I doing here? And I'd messaged a couple of, older senior practitioners saying, I'm really anxious. And they were great. They're like, you deserve to be there. Just, enjoy the night, whatever happens. But Litigation Partner of the Year was one of the last ones called. And this is why I love litigation. I love to win and I hate to lose. And so I'm trying to teach the kids about being a good sport. And sometimes being a good sport means not winning, but doing so gracefully. And I had totally packed up and I'm thinking, I just want to go. Like, I'm not going to win. Let's just go. And, Courtney on my team, she was there and she's videoing as they're making the announcements. And then they called my name. And it was so special because I had Danielle, who we had on the podcast. She'd come in and I know she's been a previous award winner. And I also had there was a massive table from my previous firm there as well, cheering me on. So it was so special. And it just made me realise I do deserve to be here and I am smart enough, even though I probably am not the highest IQ smartest person. I work so hard and I have always worked really hard, and that's something that was instilled as us growing up as kids.
And I want to circle back to that IQ point you just made, but do you feel like taking home that trophy, Litigation Partner of the Year, was a validation for the approach you've taken, even if that approach has rubbed some people the wrong way, as you mentioned earlier?
Yes. Rubbing people the wrong way seems to be a strength of mine. Yes, it definitely showed me, and, my father taught the boys and I this, and so did Mum, that hard work beats talent every day. I'd come home and I'd say, Dad, all these girls are getting A's and I'm not getting, and he would say, they're working harder than you. You need to work harder. And, he's an elite coach. So we were always brought up, hard work will beat talent. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And it when I started law school, I proved that as well, because I got honours, I got into, this advanced program, but only because I worked so hard. I was so disciplined at it. So taking out that award proved to me that you don't have to be the best person, the smartest, the brightest, the genius in the room, but if you're willing to work so hard, and I do feel like I outwork a lot of people, I have a work ethic that is like none other, but I have to be careful because that can lead to burnout as well. But yes, it was a moment where I realised hard work, dedication, sacrifice, you can actually achieve anything, as corny as that sounds.
No, absolutely. And just on this point about taking an approach that maybe not everyone's going to like, being able to recognize that, I think, is probably a really important first step. But why is it critical to stay true to an approach, even if you think that not everybody is going to be on board with it? Why is it important to have the courage to stay the course?
It's important because it's so hard being different, and it is easier to be like everybody else. I try to teach myself feedback is a gift, but sometimes the things that people say are very difficult to take on board. And just because you're an outgoing personality, or you're a fierce advocate for your clients, or you want to do things a certain way, which is my approach, it doesn't mean you don't have feelings and things don't bother you. But having that personality does rub people the wrong way, because they want you to fall in line and do things the way that everybody else does things. Why do things differently? Who is this female-led firm? Better outcomes, Noble. What would they know? But I think maybe as you get older and you have more time on the tools, I'm 40 now, so I always say once you're 40, you start to care way less about what people think. But I think because deep down I know that my vision for the firm and my goal and everyone that's on board, it's a genuine approach to doing things differently, and the way that we want to do it is different, and that's okay.
We're chatting with Jane Bowes, Litigation Partner of the Year, and we'll be back with more right after this. Jane, there are a couple of different themes that I wanted to touch on with you with regards to your success as a litigator. You've alluded to two of them already, the IQ piece and also burnout, and we'll come to those shortly. But I also wanted to ask you about this idea of being underestimated. And you sort of referenced this a little bit earlier in terms of feeling intimidated coming down to Sydney from Rockhampton. But tell me about your sense of feeling underestimated and how that has fueled your journey as a litigator.
That's a good question. Don't underestimate me is number one, because I think I have felt really underestimated. Just because someone is loud, outgoing, not the typical lawyer type. I've been described as, let me think, polarising, reverent, lacking diplomacy at times. What else? Yeah, it's very vivacious and outgoing. But just because somebody is like that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not smart, that they're not a good litigator. I actually think that because I am like that, especially in my line of work, I can litigate and understand what my clients need, and I can advocate fiercely for them. Yes, it can be seen as a sort of a bullish bulldog type approach. I think it's great because it ties in perfectly with our no bull approach. It's not always the way to win a case, though. There are times where you do have to be much more diplomatic. I'm not always going to, go completely hell for leather in a case, run it to trial every time, because that's not always within the client's best interests. And it's interesting, I've had great training as well. So I was so lucky at McInnes Wilson when I first started there. I started there when I was in university and then worked my way up. And fortunately, one of the equity partners said, "Do you want to come and work under me?" I was like, "Yep." I didn't even know what we were doing. I just thought this is going to be a great opportunity. And he really invested a lot of time in teaching me the skills of litigation and that, the art of negotiating when it's time to really put the pressure on and when it's time to not do that. How to make an offer. And I used to come home and I would think, nothing I ever do is right. I'd never back in the day, they would handwrite their markings on the piece of paper. And now, with the benefit of hindsight and maturity, I can see he was really invested in me as a lawyer and a junior. And I was probably a bit pig-headish and didn't realise it at the time. So I was really lucky and so fortunate to have that really good skill. And then when I left and I did defendant work, which was obviously practising on the other side of the fence, I had another amazing boss who taught me the beauty of, he would say, "Jane, sometimes it's okay to be understated." And he was the one that described me as the rough diamond. And, I would, because of probably my dance background and theatre, I would come in and, make all these submissions and want it to be this theatrical thing. And he would say, sometimes you don't need to do that. And, we really worked on that skill as well. So I had sort of both sides of the, really kind of a ruthless litigator, fight, and then the understated. And it came together, and I think it's given me a good balance. But I will always be Jane Bowes, the bullish. What you see is what you get. And unfortunately, it does get people offside from time to time. But most people can see that I am a genuine person and it comes from a good place. So,
do you still feel underestimated? And if so, does it upset you? Does it impact you somehow? Or does it serve as motivation now?
At times, yes, I do. And it lights the biggest fire in my belly. And I see similarities actually in myself and my mother. My mum's really smart. Both my parents are teachers, and I always say to people, if your parents are teachers, it's such a great way to grow up because they just tell you that you can do anything. So you have this belief that I could achieve anything I want. But mum is similar, where she's my mum's actually very smart, but she's a very outgoing person. And sometimes I will look and I can see people judging her. And I think she is so smart, like you don't realise. And I think it's the same with me too. People see this, loud, outgoing person and think, she wouldn't know what she's talking about. But I do know what I'm doing, and I advocate so strongly, always in my client's best interests, and also I feel I've had times too, not just in litigation, but in the business side of things where I've been underestimated, and same thing. I think just because I'm a woman with a bit of confidence doesn't mean I don't know how to get the deal done, and it doesn't mean that I'm going to put up with, any of the mediocre things that are coming my way. Like if a man did that, no one would even blink an eye. They would just move on. But a woman, I don't know, it's different.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. So do you feel like, in a sense, you're a better litigator because you've been underestimated?
I think so, yes. And I think, maybe it's the always trying to, prove them wrong, I guess. And I think too, I don't have a high IQ, I would say, but I have a very high EQ. I can read the room. I can read people. I've always had that. And now that I'm older, I know how to use that better. And it's really served me well in litigation and the business.
Let's talk about that. That was the next topic I wanted to delve into with you, this idea of having a high EQ over a high IQ. And, and I'll preface this by saying that, from every conversation I've had with you, I've no doubt whatsoever that you have a high IQ. But tell me about your take on the importance of EQ over IQ here.
I just think that in law, everyone seems to put such an importance on being smart, being book smart, black letter law smart. But it's so much more than that. You're dealing with people. When you're running a firm, you've got staff to look after as well. And having an emotional intellect. In law, everyone puts such a big emphasis on having a high IQ, and black letter law being that smart in that traditional sense. But having a high EQ, I believe, gets better results because, one, you can read the room, you can read the play, you can read your client. I can tell instantly when something is off. In the business, I can tell, and with the staff, straight away. It's just a natural born thing I've always had, and it's never failed me.
I suppose that every lawyer does need a certain amount of book smarts in order to succeed. But in the current climate and given the ways in which lawyers need to market themselves, the kind of branding they need to have, in the age of social media, being emotionally intelligent and being able to connect with clients in better, more meaningful ways has probably never been more important, particularly for litigators.
It is, yes. And in personal injury litigation as well, the market is flooded. What's going to stand out to people? But I think people are they can see through fakeness. They really connect with a genuine person. They connect and they want to support, especially with our firm, they want to support a small firm where we're values driven and we're not driven by profit. We only act for genuine people. We are very specific about our clientele and our reputation. And that comes again with, I try to meet most of the clients so I can get a read on what's happening, because at the end of the day, we don't get paid sometimes for 2.5, 3 years. If we're litigating, we could be 4 years down the track. That's a lot of money to have on the line for us as a firm. So I need to be able to read what's going on with that person, how are they going to present in the witness box, and also I want to see the witnesses and what's going on there. I also want to know who's on the defence, and I love that I've practiced in defence because I can say, listen, if I was a defendant, this is what I would do. So I always want to get 10 steps ahead in the play. I'm very strategic about how I do that, and having a high EQ helps with that.
Yeah, and so for those who want to lean further, into that emotional piece and really hone their EQ. Are there certain ways that litigators can look to build that up?
Yes, you need to, and this is very difficult for me because my brain operates at 1,000 miles a minute. Stop, slow down, and be okay in peace and quiet. Very difficult for me.
Yeah.
But as you get older and you start practicing, you can do, there's all sorts of things outside of the law. There's breath work, there's meditation, there's, lots of different leadership courses. And, I've had some great business coaches, and I still have coaches that help me with those sorts of things. But having a high EQ and being able to have a gut instinct about someone or about a case is so invaluable. Trust yourself. And I always used to joke to the partners, actually, at one of the firms, they would say, we don't need to hire so-and-so. We'll just ask Bosie, because that's our nickname down in Brisbane. We'll ask her because she's always right. And I would say, I told you. And that's, how did you know? And I said, there was something off about that situation. And I would joke and say, and I've got something that you don't have, which is female intuition, which is even stronger. But yes, when you learn to trust your gut, and I'm not saying go out there and just do everything your gut instinct tells you to do. When you do that and you make a considered approach with what's going on, and you've actually put some thought into it, you've got the facts in litigation, you've got the evidence, you can really go far in terms of reading the play and knowing what's going on, being very strategic. And I'm not just strategic in litigation, I'm strategic in how we do marketing with the firm. Like, that's all me. We don't outsource. I'm strategic, but very gut instinctual person.
Yeah. And what would you say to litigators who maybe don't believe that having high EQ is just as important, if not more important, than having high IQ? I mean, certainly you can point to your trophy to say that high EQ is important, but what kind of argument would you make to them to better prioritize having a high EQ?
Well, first of all, I love that trophy. It sits up in the mantelpiece. It's so fancy. The kids love it. That's fine. Look, we can all have different approaches, and if that's the way that they think that they can get the best outcome for their client. At the end of the day, it's just about doing the best for your client in litigation. And like I said earlier, it's not always helpful, although we're going to trial, this is it. 9 times out of 10 in personal injury, they fall over before we get to trials. We used to run trials a lot more when I was a junior. They don't seem to run as much anymore, which disappoints me because I love litigation. The team tends to say, it is a lot more work. But the end result, if you win, is great. Obviously, I hate to lose. But often there's a compromise in there somewhere. So, the client may not want to run it all the way to trial. So, and again, I can easily tell when a client has taken all the advice in and maybe they're not comfortable with what the next step is. And so I always say to them, you don't have to rush this. Let's come back to it and then make a move.
Yeah. Jane, I just have a few more questions for you, which we'll get to on the other side of this. Jane, the third topic I wanted to flesh out with you is the idea of better managing and recognising burnout, which, from conversations we've had, has also been a pillar of your success as a litigator. So, tell us about that.
Oh, this is it's a really important conversation to have. Anyone that works with me and knows me, my brain operates at 1,000 miles a minute. It's very difficult for people to keep up with me, but comes with extreme burnout. So now that I'm older and I can recognise how I operate, I can now take steps to make sure I'm managing that so that I don't, because I have had burnout where I've completely just wanted to walk away from the law. And I think it's important to talk about it. It's not an easy conversation to have. But if I'm not vulnerable and open up about those things, like, no one's ever going to talk about it. I think it probably would have been 5 years ago. I'm like, I'm done. I cannot do this. I was so exhausted. I just could not go on. But now that I have good resources in place in terms of support with the business, so staff, business coach, and also our family works, they know when I need respite. And I think everyone needs to make sure, and I am terrible for it because I think, I used to have this motto, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And obviously you can't live like that. You need to sleep and you need to get up early if you're an early person, which I am. I'm up at 4:30 training at the gym. This morning it was 3:30 to get to Sydney, so it's been an early start. But I go to bed early and I really try to prioritise sleep. Anyone that's running a business will tell you that sleep is so hard because you cannot switch off. You're always thinking about, like, what's next. Even I really try now, if I'm with the kids when we're having a swim or in the pool, phones are away, they're upstairs. On the weekends, phones are away for a period of time so that I can catch up. But in law, it's very much driven by this hard, and I think Danielle and I spoke about this when we were on. Certainly when we were growing up, it was just, you would just work until you died, basically. It's not like that anymore, thank God. But you can't get to, I don't think you can achieve things, really high things, without some sort of sacrifice and compromise. And I had someone really senior reach out to me. He's sort of like a trusted person in my business. He had said to me, you went from dancing and then you were in a call centre, then you did law, and now you worked your way up so fast and now you run your own firm. Like, that's an amazing, and then you're winning all these awards. Because I was like, you have those periods where you're really down and really flat. And I thought, yeah, that is amazing, and my personality does allow me to do that. But it's very important to know that you also need time off and time management.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks so much for being willing to share all of that with us. It's very generous of you. I was interested in two things listening to you because these two things really resonate with my own experience with burnout. The first one being that you can't fully eliminate stress and anxiety from your life, particularly in a high pressure environment like law. You have to appreciate that there is a certain amount of stress and burnout that you will have to face, and what's important is figuring out how best to manage that in ways that you're comfortable with, in ways that make sense to you. And secondly, that you also have to appreciate your own unique personality quirks, and what makes you tick, and realize what your capacities and limitations are, and then you just sort of adapt and pivot based on that. Is that how you see it, that you have to be pragmatic about who you are, what you can do, and you try to then find success from there?
Yeah, and I think it's hard to accept yourself for who you are. You get better at it as you get older. I said earlier, now that I'm 40, I care less. So I understand that the junior lawyers as well would be, you are really mindful of what other people think and what your boss is going to think. And, when I was younger, I was always first in, last to leave. And there's still something in that. I'm not saying don't do that. But certainly you need to recognise what type of person, how do you function? And I say this to the team, I say, just because I'm on in the morning, like I'm brain dead at 2:30, so I'm doing meetings, don't schedule any meetings for me in the morning because I'm doing my hard work. That's how I work. But just because I work that way, you can work whichever way you want. If you want to leave the office, if you want to do different hours, so you can leave at 3 and you're better at that time or you're better later, that's great too. But you just have to be really honest with yourself and recognise your strengths and your weaknesses. And for me, operating at 1,000 miles a minute, yes, it's meant that I have been able to achieve a lot, but also my blood runs hotter than Hades. So I am that quick to make a decision where sometimes that's not the best thing for the business. So that's why my second in charge, Courtney, she's very calm, considered, which is a great balance for me. So I like to put those supports in place around me where, I don't know that we could have two of me, at the top. We might be able to. So just be honest with yourself, but be kind to yourself as well, which is really hard for me. I've learnt that as well. And it's okay to have a break and take some time off.
Absolutely. And are there any other matters or issues that you've come across that have really formed part of your recipe for success as a litigator? Anything we haven't touched on?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many people that have helped me along the way and continue to help me. I'm so grateful for every opportunity I've had, whether or not I appreciated it at the time.
Yeah.
I think the good part about doing this podcast now with the Women in Law coming up is that my experience hasn't always been that great with female females at the top. I've always sort of worked really well under men. And now, more recently though, it's been the senior females that have kind of reached out to me and, you know, checked in and said, you know, I see you doing all this stuff. There's a lot going on. Is everything okay? And every now and again I'll burst into tears, and every now and again things will be great. So it's a good time because a lot of the people that I learnt under were men, but they don't have, and they're not mothers, so they don't have the same sort of pressures. And I'm not saying that you don't have it, because you do in your own right, but it's different for us. So I think for me as well, what I want to train my staff to is the importance of being a strong litigator, but doing it with compassion, doing it with understanding, and leaning into your EQ, leaning into your intuition, trusting each other, and just trust the purpose, trust the process. And I had like one of my best bosses, the one I had in defendant, he always just trusted us to do our job. He didn't micromanage. And then as a result, we always worked so hard. And so I'm trying to blend all those things I've learnt from each great boss along the way to be a better litigator and a better leader. But I'm so far from perfect. I have made so many mistakes along the way, and, you know, and continue to do it. I've probably not treated people the best way because I have such a high standard of myself. And I've learnt over time that, you know, it's not okay to ride people as hard as I was back in the day. And just because we're all like what's the saying? You know, we're all a making of our upbringing. So in my family, like, we were just really tough. The boys and I, you know, I'm the youngest of two boys. So we were just really, you know, we worked hard, we were tough, we were sporty, we were competitive. And so I've always been like that. And then I obviously got into law, and then litigation is just like, you know, it never stops. You're always running things up and down to the court. But I think over time I've learnt too that I don't need to be like that hard-ass person and boss, and especially to the staff. There's room in there for empathy and compassion.
Yeah, absolutely. Jane, just before I let you go, for other lawyers listening to this, whether they're in litigation or not, why should they put up their hands for recognition at awards like the Partner of the Year Awards? You know, why should they feel confident in themselves and their achievements to say, you know, I deserve to be recognised?
Well, that's a good question, because I would have never, ever I just didn't think that it was something that I would ever win or be made a finalist. I think someone might have nominated me and then you put your submissions in. But the thing is, don't count yourself out of the race. Don't write yourself off. And I've learnt that just from winning the award. I remember the Lawyers Weekly crew, they're so lovely. So I got there, and then after I won, you know, everyone was sort of hanging around and congratulating, and they said, no, you did. And I said, I can't believe I won. Like, how? They said, you deserve it. Like, you did. Your story's really inspiring. And you don't, I think because it's just me. So I don't think what I'm doing is anything incredible. I'm just living my life and trying to live it with purpose. Like, I really feel purpose driven about the firm and about litigating in a way that really sticks up for vulnerable Queenslanders. I'm very, very passionate about that. I will not let a client be stuffed over. I can't. It doesn't sit well with me. So to anyone sitting out there thinking that, I don't think I'll get it, neither did I. Like, I'm for this tiny firm in central Queensland. I went up against these huge firms in, you know, the big Sydney siders. So just like I have said in the past, you never know what you're going to get. Just open the door, say yes to the opportunity, and throw your hat in the ring.
Yeah. Jane Bowes, thank you so much for coming back on the show, and congratulations on your award win.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I'm off to enjoy a little bit of Sydney. Thanks, Jerome.
And thank you to the listener for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give us a rating and a review on whatever platform you use to listen to podcasts, as it'll help other lawyers discover and enjoy this show. And if you've got ideas for other episodes we can run, please get in touch at editor@lawyersweekly.com.au. You can also reach us on social media. See you again next time.